Original's still best. Woo! This was a very highly anticipated remake, and I like remakes. It's always nice for some of our favorite games to be revived, and I do think that remakes are very fun, but I don't necessarily think that every single game needs a remake, and I feel like a lot of them do not capture the full essence of the original title. I think that this did a really good job. I think that it was solid. I think that it was fun. I think that it was enjoyable. But at the same time, I still felt like the original is still better. So let's rate this. My opinions on this are very positive. I had a really good time with it. This review is gonna be a pretty solid one. So let's start off with the graphics. I thought that the graphics were fantastic. I think that most modern games should look pretty good. I did have a little bit of an issue, which we'll get into more with the bugs and glitches part, where during some of the cutscenes, we did have some lighting issues and texture issues. It was not constant, but it was noticeable, and it did take you out of the experience a little bit. But I generally think that the graphics did look very good. There were no major issues like texture problems or pop-in, nothing awkward like that most of the time. So I'm going to give the graphics a fantastic. The aesthetic was also very on point. I didn't feel like they changed what made this game look very special in the first place. I don't think, even for a remake, they did that much in terms of updating. Of course, obviously, it's 2025. The graphical level is very different. The technology it's made on is very different. But I still think that the aesthetic was very solid. It was very well executed. And it did look like Metal Gear. So I'm going to go for very immersive. The music was phenomenal. I think that this has such a fantastic soundtrack, and what I really loved that they did with this game is they brought a lot of the original people back, whether that was images or the soundtrack. So the main theme is still sang by the same singer. Obviously, though, many years later, they even actually did that with the risque or nudie posters in magazines. They brought back the women who were originally on them, but they just updated their images, which I also thought was a really cool and neat touch. And the music, I feel, suits the game very well. I would say that there were some sections, though, that needed a little bit more of an oomph. They needed a little bit more music. There was a lot of time where it was just like dead air. There wasn't a lot going on. But what they created was phenomenal. So I'm going to go fantastic because I truly think that the music is a very strong suit of this game. The difficulty, you can play this in a couple of different ways. I personally am not particularly the stealthiest human being alive. If you are going to put a bazooka or a machine gun or a sniper in my hand, yeah, I'm going to use it. You get a lot out of this game, though, if you are stealthing around and you are being very strategic. You're taking your time, which there were a couple of sections that we obviously did. I personally like to put the pedal to the metal, the Vara way. Has not failed me once yet, but they give you a lot in terms of the way that you can actually play this. I don't necessarily think that it is a hard game to play on a normal difficulty. Obviously, there are ways that you can bump up the difficulty by doing no-kill runs, by doing the no-kills, stealthing around, trying to go for no alerts, things like that. We obviously did not, but if you're just playing on an average difficulty, you're going to have an average time. It's not the most difficult game ever. So I'm going to go easy to learn, hard to master to average. I think that any of those could go, so I'll just go average. The boss fights are all very unique and all very cool. I love the diversity of these boss fights. You have fights like the end where you can snipe him and potentially be one shot. You can sneak up behind him and you can shoot him. You have the pain, which I really like. I love the sorrow fight because of how different each playthrough can be. Because if you do an all kill run, by that point the fight is going to be extremely long, extremely tedious. It's going to be very tough. Or you are going a no kill run and then it's very quick. I think that the boss fights in this game are great. They are not the best boss fights that I have ever experienced in a title, but I think with the range of the elements and the different weapons and the strategies you have to use against them, I think that this game, in terms of the boss fights, are great. So I'm going to give it a great. Yeah, the fury, the sorrow, the ends, bosses, heartbreaking, loved it. We did encounter a couple of minor problems. While we were playing the game, we did experience a couple of minor problems with the cutscenes. I did not have many issues in terms of the game itself, but in the cutscenes, we did have some FPS drops, and we also had lighting and texture problems. They were not consistent, and they were not so intense that it made me want to shut the game off. But at the same time, they were prominent. They did happen quite a lot. We tweaked the settings around a little bit, so that seemed to have fixed it, but it was unfortunate. So I can't give this a perfect score. I have to go a few bugs. Were they game-breaking bugs? No, but bugs nonetheless. The story for this game is absolutely great. Is this the best Metal Gear game in existence? I'd probably say not. I still think that 1 is up there, Sons of Liberty is up there, this is up there, all really fantastic. While there are a couple of Metal Gear games I personally have not experienced, this game basically offers anything you could want, I would say, in a title like this. I'd say that the story's pretty straightforward up until about the last 20% of the game, where they really start throwing the curveballs at you with the boss and Eva, and by that point you don't really know who to trust or how to trust anyone. They throw a lot at you in the last 20 or so percent. It's set in 1964, so about 30 years before the events of the original Metal Gear. I think that chasing around Sokolov is very cool. The story centering around Snake is really well done. We're attempting to rescue Sokolov throughout this entire experience, and I felt that it was pretty well paced, because there's several different times where you're attempting and you're failing and you're basically getting beat up by the boss, but it's not back to back to back to the point where it feels far too repetitive. I really like the 60s Soviet jungle setting. I think that that is really nice. I love the boss. I think that she is a really cool character, and by the end, I truly feel like a lot of the themes within the game are wrapped up so well. A lot of the supporting characters in this game do not just feel like they are average characters thrown into the mix just to get you enough characters to have a story. You have Ocelot, you have Volgin, Eva is phenomenal. The boss is really cool. The Sorrow is my favorite, and the End is really cool. Close seconds, but they're all very cool characters who all encapsulate these different emotions and these different overarching themes. Now, we could sit here all day, I'm certain, and debate Kojima's work. Some people think that Kojima is an absolute god of a storyteller. There are some people out there who are not the biggest fans of Kojima's work and think that he is a little bit pretentious. And I do believe that Kojima has always wanted to just be in Hollywood, and Kojima doesn't just care about making a game. He's always cared about furthering his career in terms of movies. Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater, it is definitely a movie. And I don't think that that's bad. But at the same time, my number one issue with Kojima has always been he's got some absolutely phenomenal ideas, but they're not properly executed. He has a lot of these ideas and no editors to tell him, hold back 5 of the 25 ideas you want to put into a title. I like his work a lot of the time. I would not say that Kojima's work is my favorite, though. This game does have a lot of really great characters. I do think that the pacing for the story is still pretty cool. I would still say I still kind of like Sons of Liberty and one more, but Snake Eater is up there for certain. And if this is your first like foray into Metal Gear, I think that that is also a great way to start off the franchise. So I'm not going to say it was a 10 out of 10 story. I would put my story rating between good and fantastic. I would say it's a really well done, while just being a smidge under fantastic. So I'm going to click fantastic, but it's still slightly lower than that. The gameplay is, I would say, challenging yet amazing. I think that there are multiple ways to play this title. You can play it in a way that is certainly very fast-paced, and you might end up regretting that decision later down the line. Of course, you are supposed to play this as a stealthier game, taking your time, being very strategic. If you are doing all kill runs or no kill runs, it can definitely be much more challenging. There's a lot of really nice tools at your disposal, so I'm going challenging yet amazing. Quality of life, I'm going perfect. I did not feel that this game left anything out. Obviously, there are all these different sorts of radars and trackers, all sorts of weapons and explosives. All of the different camouflages are very nice. So I'll go perfect. The game time is obviously on the shorter side, especially when you are remaking something, you are bringing it to a modern audience, right, that expects 30, 40, 50-hour games. We finished our playthrough in about 12 hours. You could finish it in a little bit less if you felt like it. So it is short, but also extremely impactful. The price is, in my opinion, still not worth it. Now, because this is a remake, I'm judging solely based on the remake. If this was the first time Snake Eater was ever releasing, and it was the first time we were experiencing this story, I would probably say it's worth it. But because this is a rehash, I'm going to be extra critical, as I usually am, with remakes, reboots, remasters. And I would say to wait for a sale. You are not getting an extremely new experience. Obviously, they upgraded the graphics and some of the controls, and it feels much fresher and updated, which is great. It's the point of a remake. But I personally think that this is not a game that is worth a $50, $60, $70, or $80 price tag. This would be a great $40 title, and I think at $40, I would feel much more comfortable saying full price. But I do not believe it is worth $80 if you end up buying the deluxe edition, or 70 for the standard. Replayability, there definitely is quite a lot that you could do. I personally will not replay this version anytime soon. I'm honestly tempted to go back and play the original. Now, to directly compare it, you can get a couple of playthroughs out of a title like this, for sure. So I will go handful of playthroughs, but for me personally, I wouldn't replay it for a couple of years. This game was very fun. I did enjoy it. I thought that it was one of the better remakes that we've gotten, but I still feel like it is, in my opinion, hard to give a remake an extremely high score because it's not the first time I'm experiencing a story. It's not the first time I'm really truly playing the experience. For me, while it is visually very appealing, and I love the 60s Soviet era jungle aesthetic, and I love all of the different systems like the camouflages, the cure system. I love a lot of the weapon variation. A lot of these characters are phenomenal. I'm going to go an 8. I think that for me personally is a very comfy score. This is right at the top of my opinion for Metal Gear. I think that it is a very aesthetically pleasing remake. I love the visuals. I love the atmosphere. There are a lot of really well done systems in this, like the cure system, food, camouflages are really nice. There is a lot of emotional depth to this story with characters like the boss and like Eva and Snake and his personal like journey of inner turmoil, coming to grips with everything he believed he knew until you were 95% of the way through the game. You have some more comedic moments, right, with the Sorrow. I absolutely loved his little countdown during the Volgan fight. I thought that was really funny. And Volgan as a villain is really cool too. He's very brutal, very intense, very horrific. All in all, I think that Snake Eater is a really good game. And I think that an 8 out of 10 fits this title perfectly.